So I think we're live. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Katie. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Looking forward to our chat.
Me too. So, hello, everyone. I'm Katie Friedman. If you don't know me, I'm founder of Flexible Working People. And we are streaming live today, both into the Flexible Working People Facebook group and to my LinkedIn. So, if you're watching on either, hello. And if you're watching on replay, hello to you too, because I know a lot of people watch these on replay later. So I'm doing something a little bit different today because I've been working with Darren for a little while and he's been supporting the business and I think he's brilliant. So I said to him that, we've got a lot of business owners and businesses, B2B, that we work with. And so I just thought we'd do something a bit different because Darren's a business development specialist. He works with businesses to help to support them to grow their pipelines and to be better at business development. And I've really loved chatting to him over the last few months. And he's got so much value and tips and strategies that he shared. I thought that we'd do a session today where he could share those kind of more broadly. So that's what today's session is about. I laugh with Darren because he says, you need to be out there, you need to be at meetings, you need to be face to face. And I think we've all become really reliant on sitting behind our desks, particularly sort of the post-pandemic world where we're all on Zooms, and it's become kind of much more natural and comfortable for us to be sitting behind our computers. But he tells me that I still need to get out there. I still need to have meetings, meet people face to face, which I know. But I said to Darren, why don't you come on and let's have a chat about BD and let's share with everybody kind of what your top tips and strategies are. So welcome, Darren. So I think we'll start, Darren. I'm going to hand over to you and stop chatting. But I would like to start by just talking about sort of at really high level what business development is, because I think that we know what it is. We talk about marketing and we talk about sales, we talk about business development. But specifically, why don't you kick off by talking to us about what business development is?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And it's a big question. It's a big area. For me, business development falls into a couple of categories. Business development is around how do we grow and expand and retain our existing clients and relationships. Business development is also how do we win and acquire new clients. I was speaking to a client over the last few months and they said their focus on BD was only about new clients and they had lost sight of, actually, we've got all these existing clients. How do we still retain and grow those? So it really has to be a focus on those. There is a third element, which is around developing your offering and your service and innovating and adapting. But for the context of this conversation, really focusing on winning more business from existing clients and acquiring new clients. But I think also business development is a process. It's not an event. You don't just do business development, that's it. There's an infinite cycle of different activities and a process that you'll go through to eventually, hopefully, win that business. Something I'm seeing in lots of organisations is they're sometimes focused on the outcome. Their goal is, so you're part of your business in the recruitment game. A goal of the day is we want to get some jobs on. Well, that's the outcome, that's the goal. But all the BD activities is actually what you get there. So focusing on those activities, focus on the process to deliver that outcome, just changes the mindset. And it's actually more motivational because you're not always going to get a job on every day, but you are going to get meetings, conversations, you're going to see step forward to the next part. So that's how I frame and think about business development for many organisations.
Okay, so I think that's a really good point. I love the fact that we all think we want results, so we sort of see it as the result. We want the results quickly, but actually just doing a little bit every day is all helping us to get to the place that we want to get to. And I think that as a small business, I find business development quite challenging. And I'm sure lots of people, whatever size their organisation, obviously some will have business development people that they hire and they won't have to think about it. But as a sort of small to medium business, often you do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I just, in your view, why do you think that businesses do find it so challenging? What are some of the common sort of mistakes that you're seeing that people make when they're doing their BD?
What some of the main things that we see is, first of all, there's often a lack of strategy and focus. So, well, what is your strategy to grow and retain your existing clients? What is your strategy to go and win new clients? What is your focus? Some organisations say, well, we can provide our services to everyone. Well, in the UK, there's 5.6 million businesses. You're not going to be able to service all of those. So what does your ideal client look like? What are the problems that they've got, and how can we get to them? And what's the warmest way to do that through networks, relationships? How can we make that as warm and as easy as possible? So bringing in that focus. For many people, actually, another client I was with a little while ago, that it just sounds too much. I don't know where to start, was their thought when they were thinking about their business. So within a short space of time, you can kind of pull it apart, have conversations, and come out with a fairly clear and focused strategy to say, okay, I can deal with that. That's small bite-sized chunks that is manageable. So how do we make it manageable for you to go off and do? Because I say you're not going to be able, no one can service 5.6 million companies in the UK. So that's the first part. A second part is obviously sometimes a skills gap. There's people running businesses, great subject matter experts, know their stuff inside out, back to front, but they've never really had any training or support in actually doing business development. And what does it mean? And what are all the tools? What are all the activities I could be doing to drive my business in one way, shape, or form? So we are seeing that across a wide range of businesses, and there is a real skill gap here. So can you be upskilled? Can you expand or develop your mindset, tool set, and skill set to help you be better at business development? I think those are probably the two big ones to start with, and you can start to make some impact there. Actually, things will hopefully get better.
Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper now. So let's look at sort of the best approach. So if we talked a little bit about strategy, which obviously is really important, but without strategy, you're just sort of going in blind every day and building connections and kind of doing what you think that you should be doing to open doors, but might not necessarily be working for you.
Yes.
So once you've got the strategy, what's the best approach? Like, where should businesses start? Obviously, clear strategy first, getting your targeting, your audience, knowing who you're talking to and your message. And then what's your advice for how to start opening those doors?
So again, do you want to focus the conversation on acquiring new clients or growing and expanding existing clients? What do you think would be more interest to the audience?
I think a bit of both. Let's start with new business, because I think that people find it easier to nurture existing relationships, whereas it's sometimes harder to get in, build new connections. So let's focus on the new connections.
So the new connections. So, but where to start? Look, there's a lot of information and tools out there. So once you've got your strategy and focus, and what sector or what geography and what size of company are of interest? Who are the people? Try to bring it back to, well, where have you had success? If you've had a lot of clients in a certain area, then you've got a great story to tell to similar organizations in that similar space. So we can already make that connection a little bit warmer because we've got a track record. So I would hone in on those to start with. And then what other organizations are around that industry and sector that are all aligned? So there's, again, a good story to tell that will resonate with them. And once you've done that, then you'll start to identify, are there common people? Are there people in your network who have got connections that can make introductions for you into these other organizations? So how can we make that introduction as warm as possible? I'm a huge fan of I talk about activating your advocates. Who are the people that know you, like you, trust you? They're your ambassadors. If you've done a good job for someone, they're more likely to make an introduction or referral for you. So I don't think people use that anywhere near enough. We're sometimes a bit ashamed and embarrassed to ask, and don't be. People will help if you ask them to. So really think about that as a real channel for opening up those doors. We've talked on many occasions about LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a fantastic business to business development tool if it is used in the right way. And I think there's 2 or 3 ways that people should be using or could be using it. One is clearly identifying relevant people in your market to connect to and to start to engage with, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But at the very least, you should be following your clients. You should be following your clients' competitors and all the other organizations in and around that sector. And the reason why I say follow the companies so that you start to get news feeds about what is going on in those businesses. And there might be something interesting in there that, that's a hook, that's an angle I can pick up on. In terms of the new connections, my approach to this, I'm not a big fan. If someone reaches out to me and I have no idea who they are, we've got nothing really in common, and they reach out and that they want to connect, I'm not always keen on doing so. So if I don't think I've got many connections with somebody, I'll follow them to start with. If I've got quite a lot of mutual connections, I'll use that as the angle to say, hey, we've got many mutual connections, let's connect. and then I'll connect with them. So
can I just interrupt you there? When you send
Sure.
a LinkedIn request, would you always send a message with it, or would you just send a LinkedIn request to connect?
I personally prefer to personalize it and to put a message in, and to give a reasonable context. We've got mutual connections, we're in the same industry, find some commonality to this person that doesn't know me, trust me, or like me yet. So I prefer that personalized route. Other people will say actually they just send requests, and that seems to work for them. So do what you feel is comfortable for you, but also think about, well, how do you respond? In your experience, Katie, when you get requests, or when you send them out, what gets more success for you? Is it with or without a personalization?
So I don't mind either. I just find that when the personalizations are sort of quite salesy, I switch off very quickly. So, you know, I've been following you, or I've been seeing your content and I'd love to connect. Then and we've got connections in common, which is what you just said, then I'm more likely to connect.
Yes.
But sometimes I rely, when I connect with people, on the fact that they'll look at my profile and see that I'm relevant and connect. But I think you're right. You know, if you can personalize it and find some common ground, then that's the better way to do it.
I think so. It seems to work. I get a lot more acceptances of that. And to your point, as soon as someone starts selling in that first request and talking about their wares and their services, that it's a huge put off, and I'll probably decline the offer. So we need to engage first, and then think about, well, how do we use that connection to really engage with somebody? They don't know us yet. We don't have a rapport. So some schools of thought from different people on LinkedIn are, once you're following those people, if they are posting things, maybe you'll like their post, maybe make a comment on their post, or you've seen something in the news about the organization and drop them a line, say, hey, I saw your company has done this, congratulations. So just some soft touch ways to be on the radar and start to get familiar, for them to get familiar with you and comfortable with you. And hopefully that may lead to a bit more engagement. And at some point, relatively soon, you want to try to offer, when it's appropriate, to maybe have an online meeting, an introductory conversation, and finding the way to do that. Going straight in for the kill is going to put people off. It may take a few weeks, it may take a few months. Some clients in their professional roles aren't on LinkedIn all day, every day. They are fairly sporadic, so the communication can break down. But think about that process of going, following, connecting, engaging with their posts, getting some online conversation, and then looking to get a meeting with them.
So you'd say have a couple of back and forth on the messenger. Say, I've noticed this, or that, or I liked your post, and then by the third or fourth or whenever it feels comfortable, then you say, I thought then you go in for the kill with, I thought it might be nice to have a meeting.
Yeah, it would be good to have an introductory conversation, or would you be open to that? I'm keen to learn more. I always focus on them. I'm keen to learn more about you and your business, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to collaborate, and use that kind of language. So it's very soft. I'm not selling. I am generally curious. I want to know about them and their business, and maybe out of that we'll find opportunities to collaborate. So again, it's all about them, and it's angling on the softer side. I'm not selling what I do. They'll see my profile, they'll check out the wording, they'll get a sense of it. So hopefully they know what I'm about. But you need to have a good profile and good personal brand, and good content that does create a good message. So they go, okay, yeah, am I prepared to give up some time to speak to this person? If they don't respond, they're not interested, potentially. But
so would you say that LinkedIn was the most powerful tool of all the tools in the toolkit for BD?
It is a very powerful tool, but it's not the only tool. And I think people have become a little bit lazy and reliant on it as a tool. So actually, it's one of the tools. It is a great way to keep in touch with people. It's a great way to just keep on people's radars. So I also use it. You can see when someone's changed their jobs, or they've had a birthday or a work celebration, and I use it to use them, say happy birthday or congrats on the job or whatever, and it just keeps you on the radar of people and reminds you or refreshes you of people I've forgotten about. So it is a great way to help you manage that network, but it's only one tool. There are many. I mean, me personally, my favorite BD activity, if there is such a thing, is really having a one-on-one meeting with a contact, or with a client. I find that in-person meeting is so valuable. You get so much more out of it. You learn so much more about them and you build more trust and relationship. But also you've got to get that meeting in the first place. I've heard from lots of people in organisations saying, well, clients don't want to see us. We can't get meetings. And I think, well, are you actually asking for the meeting? People are accepting, is that the new norm? So I would challenge that. So, well, ask for the meeting. If all of your competitors aren't asking for the meeting, the fact that you do ask for it does differentiate you, does make you maybe stand out. As an old boss once said to me, the offer of lunch is sometimes as good as the lunch itself. So even if they don't meet with you, the fact you've made the offer, you've shown some willingness, some interest, they will remember that, and that may stick. So do ask for the meeting. And I have 3, 4, 5 in-person meetings every single week. I make it my business to do that, as well as another 10 or 15 virtual calls. So it's finding that mixture. But in-person meetings are so powerful. In most businesses, hopefully they're still fairly much people relationship driven. If you're not meeting or speaking to your contacts or clients, you're not building and nurturing that relationship, and you will lose out. So as much FaceTime, contact time with your clients as possible, I'm a huge advocate of.
And what percentage of your time would you say you should dedicate a day or a week to your business development? What's the sort of, what does that look like in a week? So do you do it every day?
Yeah, every day. For me, business and different people need to manage their time in different ways and depending on the responsibilities. So for some people, it may be that they do need to compartmentalize and say, actually, that given everything else I've got going on, I need to do BD, whatever that is, between these times and ring fence that. In other roles, I'd say actually business development is every part is involved in everything you are doing. So going back to the recruitment example, every time you're talking to a candidate, every time you're speaking to a contact or a client, there are BD opportunities that you can find, information you're finding out within that. When you're delivering on a project, that is business development. You do a great job, you've got a better chance of getting more business from them in the future, or they're more likely to refer you. So actually, I think when you look at your business and what your people are doing, is there more that they could be doing with a bit of confidence, maybe a bit of training? Say, actually, all of these things, there is a business development angle and opportunity if we know what questions to ask or what information to listen out for, that could help and support our BD activities. So yeah, I think it needs to be dive down and say, well, what are you actually doing? What does that role look like? Where are those opportunities? For me, I feel like I'm walking around almost in a BD Zen state of mind. I'm always thinking and looking and trying to join up those dots. So for me, BD is always front of mind, but that's my job and my career now. But I think in other roles, people can really turn on and engage that BD mindset, and they will be more successful at doing so.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about LinkedIn, and you've talked a bit about in-person, making sure that you get meetings and going in person.
Yes.
What other tools are in the toolkit here?
Well, there's lots. Yeah, I would do email marketing. I do branding. So referrals and using your network is a huge thing. So thinking about within your network. So again, going to use you from a recruitment example. Who else? What other types of organisations? Who are complementary service providers or complementary organisations who could become a good source of business and referrals for you? So it could be an employment lawyer, as an example, or a relevant networking group. Can we create an extended network where there's more eyes and ears and friends who are able to make introductions for us, but also we're able to make introductions for them? So how can you create that win-win relationship between the two parties? So I think thinking about, I call that your ecosystem, and thinking about all these different organizations that you could connect with and people around. Then there's networking events, and often, particularly in many professional service firms that I get to work with, people think, oh, I've got to go to networking events. I know we've spoken about this on a few occasions, and they think that's the be all and end all, and so that's one tool. And the reality is, I know many people don't like going to networking events. The thought of walking into a room with 20, 50, 100 people that you don't necessarily know can be pretty daunting. Actually, I don't think I know anybody that would say they love it and they want to do it, but it is a means to an end. But I think if you can prepare for these events, and if you've got realistic expectations on what are you trying to achieve from it, it can be a great source of making some new connections. So I go into events with probably three objectives. One, am I going to meet and see connections and people that I do know, and it's a great way to get some face time with them again. Am I going to make some new connections and who knows where those conversations will go to? And am I going to learn something new about this industry, about this environment? So that's what I want to get out of a networking event. I hear people say, I went to that event, but I never got any business from it. That was a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you're going into an event expecting to randomly bump into someone and get business from them, you're probably going to be disappointed. So again, think about, well, what are my expectations? What's realistic? I went to a networking event last week that we were supposed to go, that you unfortunately weren't able to make it. I met 3 or 4 companies. I've followed up. We've had virtual calls. I've had meetings now, in-person meetings with 2 of those, and potential business may come out of that. And I had no idea who these people were, never met them before, but we got talking and one thing has led to another. So I go in with an open mind, a curious mind, and engage in it. And you never know what you're going to find and who you're going to bump into. But my approach when I used to be a recruiter back in the day, I found as soon as I mentioned the word recruitment, that's what I did. The shutters came down. They did not want to speak to a recruiter. They thought I was just going to sell at them. So my approach, and it still works for me now, is I don't talk about me. I talk about them. I ask questions. What do you do? Why are you here? What's your connection? And so on and so forth. Or who else do they know? So we start to build trust, rapport, relationship, and they go, oh, hopefully you're a nice guy. They don't feel threatened. And then I can tell them what I do. But a key part in any networking for me anyway is I try to give first before I take. So how can I help you? Who are you trying to connect with? Who's going to be useful contact? And as they're telling me, I think, okay, well, actually, I know some people. Do you know X, Y, or Z? Let me make an introduction for you. So that's my go-to within networking is how can I help you? And if I help you, you're more likely to help me in the future. You may or may not. Time will tell. But give first and take later is my mentality when going to networking events.
I think that's really, really good advice, actually. There's been lots of things that we've talked about here. And I think actually the strategies that you're telling me, us, the listeners, are not to try and sell and not to think about the end game. Like all of the advice that you've given so far is about listening to them, thinking about how you can help them before you help yourself. And like it's all about relationship building at the end of the day. And no one wants a spammy pammy landing in their inbox trying to sell.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think as you said before, people buy from people, and that people buy from people they know, they like, and they trust. So if we've got those things lined up, you're in a good position. Then there's other factors and negotiations and the value and the service and so on and so forth. But at least you've got your foot in the door. You've got you've created the opportunity for yourself. But you've got to get that relationship first. Just to come back, when I asked you, do you want to talk about new business or existing clients? And you said actually you think people are quite good dealing with existing clients. Actually, I'm not sure that people are in many cases. Sometimes I think we take our existing clients for granted. We're not showing them as much love and care and attention as we could be. We're not informing them of the different services that we could provide to them. And the hardest part with clients is when they don't need your service at that point in time. How do you still keep on their radar? How do you still remain relevant? How do you still add value to that relationship? So when they do need you, you are the first person that they're going to come to. So actually there needs to be a strategy in place to think, right, how do we retain and grow? Because our competitors are going to be knocking on the door. They're going to be doing all the things that we've been talking about to try and break into that client. So what's your defense mechanism? And if you haven't got one, you may find that you lose that relationship somewhere in the future. So that's the worst thing. If you've worked hard to win it, then get it. How do we retain it? And how do we grow it? So you do need a strategy and put time and effort into doing that.
So do you want to share some examples of how you nurture your existing business?
Yeah, I think, again, some similar aspects. It's keeping in touch with people. It's finding reasons to meet with them, to have updates on their business, share with them insights. What am I seeing and hearing around the industry or the sector that might be of interest to them? I'll often see news alerts that are popping up on LinkedIn or other news feeds that I'm receiving. That's going to be of interest, and I'll share that with a contact. I thought this might be of interest to you. So it's just soft touches like that when we're not working on a project together that just keeps me front of mind and showing, okay, you're thinking about my business, you actually care about my business, and I haven't let it go cold. but finding a way to manage your time so that I can regularly keep in contact. And I will pick up the phone to people. I know that's a bit of a hoodoo subject that these days with some people, but I will phone contacts and I will try to catch them, or at least leave a voicemail. And
I
to
hear
be
the
asked for a
panic
meeting.
in people's voice when you call, though. I think that
When I call,
no, not when you
no.
call, but I don't know, but not pre-pandemic, but sort of setting up meetings for everything.
Yes.
You could just pick up the phone, and now my sense is that that's not the right thing to do, and that people, are in meetings and don't want to be caught on the hoof, and that you have to have a pre-arranged meeting arranged, even as a call, because no one likes to be called. But
I would
you would
challenge that.
argue the opposite.
Yeah.
You'd say pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone and try it. I think people are traveling less. People are working from home more. Even when people are on Zoom calls, they'll turn the screen off, go on mute and answer a phone call. And they say, I can't really speak. Fine, well, when can you speak? Or just grabbing a few moments.
You go,
Yeah, you may do that, but it doesn't matter. So I do use it, and it is still a very powerful tool. But even organising, trying to get meetings and coordinate that over email, you can get emails going backwards and forwards, and it can take 4 weeks to set up a meeting by the time you've sorted out the chain. So I use a tool called Calendly it's a link and people can book it in. But even that, people sometimes ignore, and you get the chain. So when I feel that starting to happen, I'll pick up the phone to say, hey, let's just look at diaries. Go, oh, so glad you did that. Then let's just save all this time. And so actually being able to speak to people, to engage, to have a bit of a laugh or a joke about the situation and bring a human side to it is so important. And you can get things answered so much quicker. If you're waiting for a chain of emails to get a decision, pick up the phone, ask the question, you might get them. If I don't, I'll leave them a message and say, I'll drop you a note as well with the details, and maybe they'll respond to email. So I cover off both. So I don't phone every single time, but I do build it in. I haven't spoken for a while. Let me try that. For me, it works, and I think it is a tool that cold calling, I'm not such a big fan of, and I think people aren't particularly receptive to absolute cold calls. But if it's somebody that you've met, they've been a client of yours, they are a client of yours, they know you, you've got their telephone number, there's no reason not to necessarily speak to them. And if they can't speak, that they'll tell you that, or it would go to voicemail. I did a workshop for a fairly experienced team of account managers in a marketing agency a little while ago, and I was shocked that people said, I won't pick up the phone even to existing clients. I feel it's intrusive. So, well, how are you building your relationship? How are you actually understanding what's going on? What are their pain points? You're missing an opportunity. Thankfully, the rest of the group agreed with me and were able to try to convince this person otherwise. But I was shocked that someone with so much experience wouldn't even want to pick up the phone to an existing client. That amazed me.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, we've run to time, but before we close, and you've given tons of great insights, I've taken notes here, I used it as a bit of a session myself. But before we close, do you want to just tell anyone who's listening how you work at Russell Strategy Partners and how people should connect with you? Because obviously you work with B2B companies and you help them with their business development. So maybe just let us know how you work, how people could work with you.
Great, thanks, Katie. Look, the way I work with companies is very flexible and tailored around each business needs, but in there's probably 3 or 4 different ways. So we could work on your strategy and have a half day or a day to pull your business apart and put it back together again and come out with a very clear, focused strategy, BD strategy for how we're going to grow and expand your business. I work with companies and people to upskill them in these BD skills. That's through workshops, but also one-to-one mentoring. I'm actually finding that to be a really powerful tool, giving that individual support to people on their own individual journey. And then I provide consultancy support. So there may be some activities that you just don't have the capacity or bandwidth to do, like horizon scanning or market mapping, or trying to do the background research, identify who are the companies of people. We provide that support as well. But it's very flexible and tailored around those needs. You can find me on LinkedIn, my profile there, or Darren Spevick at russellsp.com is my email address. Those would be the easiest ways, or maybe contact you and maybe you can refer them on if they can't spell my surname, that normally gets wrong. But those would be the best ways to find me.
So thank you so much for all those amazing tips and strategies and insights. I think that people will find that really useful. If anyone's got any comments or questions, I'm sure Darren would be more than happy to hear from you. We'll drop his contact in the thread underneath the event that we'll post. And Darren, thank you so much for taking the time today to share kind of your insights around business development. I know that over the past few months, you've really genuinely helped me to see things differently. So it's been a pleasure. All right, thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.